All right, guys. So this is a video I didn't really want to do, but with watching social media and hearing my neighbors and stuff talk, I feel I need to. The cost of a revolution. What is it? Now, many of the people I speak with have never seen a revolution, been in a revolution, let alone know someone that's been in a revolution. Or I should have said it the other way around. Correct. Sorry. First cup of coffee of the morning. So, what is the cost of a revolution? Well, give you a little background on me. I was born in the United States of America. I've lived in upstate New York. I've lived in Buffalo. I've lived in Los Angeles. I've lived all over Los Angeles. Long story short, the company I worked for, they relocated me quite a few times. Every time I get an apartment close to the location I was working, it seemed like they wanted to move me, so I had another hour in traffic to go. It's kind of a joke I had with my first manager because we stayed friends through my entire career there, and gave me advice on my exiting when Bain Capital laid off a bunch of us. But anyways, that was Guitar Center, in case you guys are wondering. So, long story short, I lived in Ukraine for 10 years. I was there during the revolution. I'd been there for 5 years, 6 years before the revolution happened. Okay, let's speak about the people it hurt. Let's not speak about the politics. Okay, we're not going to talk about Yanukovych, Poroshenko. We're not going to talk about Putin. We're not going to talk about the other groups. We're going to talk about how it affected the people, the normal people. Okay. The average wage in Ukraine for like a factory worker was like 3,000 hryvnios. And keep in mind, there are people that make 2,000 hryvnios a month. So what's a hryvnia? Well, a hryvnia, for most of the time I lived in Ukraine, was 8 hryvnios per dollar. I don't want to say, yeah, most of the time. Before the revolution, was 8 hryvnios per dollar. Okay. And sugar was 6 hryvnios for 2.2 pounds because they do kilos. So it'd be 6 hryvnios for 2.2 pounds. And yeah, I should mention the kilos because there might be Canadians and stuff watching this, so they understand. Actually, no, I don't, because the other countries, they pay more attention to the different. Sorry, it's true. Now, after the revolution, the hryvnia fell to 32 hryvnios per dollar, and I believe that was for a week or two. It might have only been for a few days, but it didn't really matter because I've always had a full pantry. But long story short, it ended up bouncing from 26 to 28. Okay. So what is 3,000 hryvnios per dollar? 375. Okay. So what is it at 26? $115. Now, 6 months to a year went during the revolution where people went from $375 to $115. They went from 6 hryvnios a bag of sugar to between 30 and 40 because really it depended on which store you went to, who was price gouging the worst. Okay. So you guys got a small taste of the toilet paper. Imagine if it's everything you had to buy. Okay. Now, so the companies came in and are like, hey, we're going to give you 1,000 hryvnios more. You're making 3,000 hryvnias. We gave you a huge raise. Keep in mind, everything is anchored in dollar. All the prices in foreign countries like that, okay? It's rather anchored in dollar or euro. So that factory owner or that store owner behind the scenes is working with the dollar or the euro, okay? We're going with the dollar because that's the example I'm giving for price. So the average worker in Ukraine, okay, went from $375 to $115. At 1,000 hryvnias at the 26, and we're going by the lowest between 26 and 28 because it did lay back on the 26 most of the time. That means they're making $150 at that rate, but everything else is still in a dollar. Like, so inflation is huge. Okay. Luckily, Ukraine is a country that's, and I say this sadly, they have faced this sort of thing countless times through history. So it's kind of in their DNA to adapt. Is it in yours? Something you need to ask yourself. And I asked this question, and we're going to come back to it in a second, okay? So they're saying, we're giving you a raise. We're giving you 1,000 hryvnias. Okay. No, you took $225 away from your original paycheck. Because if we're looking at it at what it was $375. You're now paying $150, so that's like $225 less, right? Correct? And they're acting like, we gave you a huge raise. No, they're putting a lot more money in their pocket. That's what they're doing. And trying to make it look like we're giving you a lot more money. Now, Ukraine is something you need to understand. The difference between Ukraine and the United States, it is not a credit-based society. Most people scrape up money to buy an apartment. They do not go to a bank. It's like maybe less than 5% goes to a bank for a loan for a house. Usually, they'll go to their aunts, their uncles, their fathers. They'll borrow money from family and pay the family back, okay? So there's no evil bank that can come and take your house away from you. Cars, same thing. They usually buy it in cash. Okay, usually. So they don't have huge amounts of credit card debt as we do. Okay. That is one huge difference and disadvantage the United States has compared to a country like that. And everyone's like, what do you mean we're at a disadvantage? Well, son, if we're looking at it from money and we go into a revolution and our currency falls out there, how many people can honestly raise their hand and say they don't have a bunch of money charged to their credit card or they don't have a mortgage? Do you think, if you lost that much of your pay, would you be able to keep up? A lot of us, 3 months into this, are really struggling. I'm struggling right now, and I'm not complaining. I'm not going to complain because I know there's a lot of people far worse off. Okay, but I do believe a lot of Americans are extremely spoiled. I mean, I'll give you an example. I had this guy named Ben from. I'm trying to think. I can't think of his last name. I knew this guy for a lot of years. He was trying to have a gotcha moment on Facebook with me when he's talking about, the welfare system in the United States versus Ukraine. Okay, now, on paper, Ukraine has a welfare system. in order to be okay with the European Union and the United Nations, so yes, we have this. Try to get money from that. Try to go get some benefits. I lived there for over 10 years, guys, and hey, I cannot name one person that I knew, and I had a wide group of friends from villages on the west side of Ukraine to Crimea, to Kiev, to Kharkov, from the suburbs to very wealthy people. I know what it's like to sit in a country house and play guitar with Ukrainian soldiers singing old Slavic songs. 3-4 chords, they show it to me. It's easy. Cooking shashlik, which is shish kebab for us guys in America. And David's mother even made the comment. She goes, "How do you do this?" She goes, "You're from another country," and she goes, "And I see you sit in situations where most people would be uncomfortable." No, I'm just me. I don't care. Absolutely don't. If I like a person, I'm going to sit with them. I'm going to talk with them. Same as like when we're in a train and there's a group of banditti, criminals, young boys, and they were working for an oligarch, and we're on the way to the Black Sea with David. And they had seen me, walking from the food cart back to our place on the train. And they tried to say something to me, and I just looked at them like, okay. And I answered them, Ishto. It's like, and what? And they're like, oh, wait. And then they realize I'm a foreigner. So then I'm with, and these were not bad kids. It just, well, I'm sure they were involved in havoc, but curiosity got the better of them. I went back to the food cart to get something, and I'm coming through the spot again. And I decided not to bring David with me, not because of them, but because, David was just misbehaving a little bit, and there's a step through that made me nervous taking him with me. And they stopped me. I don't mean physically stop me. They just started asking questions, offered me a cigarette. And I understand, because it's the same in any place you live. If someone offers you a cigarette or they ask for a light, it's usually a conversation starter. So I sat, I stood and spoke with them at the end of a thing, and they're like, "You're not what we're used to in Americans." Because they worked for an oligarch that owned an amusement park, in Odessa. Well, later on that night, they came to where we were sleeping, and they asked me, like, "Would you like to come have a drink with us?" And see, we were sleeping in the open bunks, and they had a side room. Now, I accepted. It's like, all right, and David's mother and I was not getting along anyways, because I had told her I didn't want to take this train. I wanted to take a more expensive train where we would have had our own room. But she didn't want to upset her mother or her friends. See, this is where socialism starts to, And so I sat with them in their little compartment. And we were drinking and we're talking. They were asking about America. They had questions about America. Rather intelligent questions, like they didn't believe what they saw in the news. Smart boys. I don't care if you turn on Fox or CNN, you're not going to get the truth. Um, so I sat with him, I drank with him, and I told him, I was like, hey, I'm going back, to the wife and kid, and I went back with them. And long story short, the next day she was like, I don't get it. And keep in mind, those boys that had arguments with even the conductor. The conductor stopped the train because this one woman who was like, I guess you would say a progressive Ukrainian, decided to tell the conductor to call the police because the boys were being too loud. And the one boy is like, do you see we're sleeping where you're sleeping? He's like, why? And it is a money thing. Ukraine is it's just, that's the way it is. You're not in the U.S. where difference in mentality. I seen, the conductor stopped the train at the next stop, and the police came on. And the girls all, until the boys told the police who they worked for. The police was like, and they put him on the phone with this oligarch. So, and the police officer started being very nice to this man on the phone. And he's like, but we are having a problem with your boys. They're disturbing the other people on the train. Could you speak to them? So he handed back the phone, and I could hear the police talking to the conductor. It's like, listen, leave the boys alone. Their boss is going to talk to him and ask him to behave. But they're untouchable. That is how countries like Ukraine and Russia are, guys. We don't have this. We're so lucky. And our social benefits are so much better. I mean, guys, poor people are fat in America. I'm not trying to fat shame. God, there's people in the U.S. that gets more money for food stamps than people make in foreign countries. Again, I'm not shaming people on EBT or whatever it is, but in a lot of ways, we're like spoiled children. It's like, I want it my way. We need this. And we need to overthrow the government. We need something done. But overthrowing the government like that? Or you want to overthrow the government? Are you going to house the elderly that get thrown out of nursing homes because their families can't afford it anymore? Are you personally going to bring food to an elderly person that no longer can afford their food, or help them pay for their prescriptions? Are you? Okay. Overthrow the government. What happens to our social benefits? I'm not talking about mine. I'm talking about those of us in the nation that has it. What's going to happen to the elderly that's getting pensions? What's going to happen to people that they're getting help with their prescriptions? What's going to happen to people on food stamps? What happens when all that ends? Do you think with the revolution, boom, the capital is going to back up within a day or two and working great? No. We're talking like Ukraine had the European Union, United States, and even Russia. That's a whole bunch of mess. But when it came to coal and stuff, Russia was giving Ukraine coal at a discount price. A lot of aid from the European Union, a lot of aid from United States, a lot of, where are we going to get this aid from, guys? Because the IMF, the money that they give to small countries, do you think that's going to be a drop in the bucket for the United States? No. No, guys, it's not. Do you think the United Nations, we are the largest donor to United Nations. What's going to happen? Are they going to come in and really be able to help us when we're their main benefactor? Absolutely not. Let's look at this. And I'm not saying Democrat or Republican. I'm not saying get rid of United Nations or stay with United Nations. But if we fell as a country, I want you to look at the real math. We're the United Nations main benefactor. Are they going to be able to come in and help us with our funding dropped off? Hell no. They're going to have to be doing cutbacks of their own because they just lost a huge amount of their budget. Do you think the European Union is going to be able to help us? They have their own countries that are falling apart around them, and they're trying to figure out how to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. You know, the IMF, guys, we're a superpower. Honestly, if a country like the United States, Canada, Australia, and I'm not going to say Russia, a lot of people's going to get mad at me. If you look at the GPD of Russia, it is not a superpower like us as far as currency goes. Do they have a strong military? Yes. But financially, no. Okay. If those three countries, if anything happened to them, could the IMF step in and save them? Absolutely not. Not going to happen. So that's the cost of a revolution, a real one. And it wouldn't be the first time in the United States, you know, and we need not go down that road. Do we need to change things? Yes. Do you really want to be like the old days where we had to take, you know, a wheelbarrow worth of currency to get a loaf of bread? I don't think so. Do you think our politicians are going to have this issue? No. Do you think the extreme wealthy, like, I'm Bill Gates, I'm here to help you and become richer? No. Warren Buffett? No, he's not going to have issues. The Koch brothers? Absolutely not. They're going to be smiling and kicking along and nodding their head because, hey, they just figured out these guys always, whether it's Republican or Democrat side, the elites, the money makers, they're always going to be sitting on the better side of things. They're going to bet on both sides and hedge their bets. And as soon as they see it start swinging one way, they're going to flip everything onto the other side to, I just made a lot of money. You know, and I think it was CNN, even though I don't really I believe Fox slightly more than CNN, and I really don't believe Fox. Because, hey, let's be honest, our news is not news anymore. It's opinion, Republican and Democrat opinion, depending on which channel you turn on. It is. But they did a thing, and I do think it was accurate, so I think it was CNN. They're talking about like 75 billionaires became extremely more wealthy during this virus situation. I believe it. Absolutely, I believe it. You know, so something we got to think about. Do we need to address racism in our country? Yeah, my son even faces it. You know, he's born in Ukraine, lived there for 3 years, and he had his 12-year-old. He's 4. Had a 12-year-old said, "Oh, so you're what a Russian looks like." Well, David is a clone of me. Basically, better looking clone. But you put up pictures, my baby pictures of his pictures. Yeah, he looks like me, but the kid's like, so this is what a Russian looks like. And his mother's standing right there. And I was like, well, David was born in Ukraine, and he's a U.S. citizen. And long story short, we've heard this kid, call David a Russian every time he sees him. And even though I've explained to his mother this is not so, and it's a cousin of my father. A few years ago when I came back for my passport, he was making a joke. Well, he lives over in Russia. I'm like, Ukraine. Well, what difference does it make? I'm like, well, I looked at him, and church-going guy, everything is about Jesus. And I'm like, well, that's a pretty ignorant statement. And he and the girl was laughing. They're like, oh, it's all Russia to us. We have a lot of willfully ignorant people, because my mother's boyfriend, she had passed, and I was back redoing my passport, and she, he had said, oh, so you're back for a visa for Russia. I was like, no, I had to get a new passport. I live in Ukraine. Well, what difference does it make? I was like, well, like, it'd be like me asking you, like, well, how do you like living in Canada? He's like, well, I live in the U.S. See, that was my point. Too thick to understand. David also has a couple parents in the local town, small town, 300 people. David is not allowed to play for children. They've gone different routes of trying to keep their kids away from them, but through other neighbors, I've found out like, well, your kid's a foreigner. He has a United States birth certificate, idiot. And he has a Ukrainian birth certificate. Just people too stupid to understand stuff like that. And we do have a problem with hatred. I'm sorry. It's true. And it's not like it's not. And it kills me when I see people from other countries like, well, the United States, this is so bad. Really, in Ukraine, we had a couple Nazis come up and say Dave couldn't play with their kids. Oni Nasha. Because daddy's American. And they hear daddy speaking English to the baby. Да, я общаюсь по-русски за круг, но мой ребенок общается по-английски. Yeah, I speak Russian to everyone else, but to my child, I speak English. So, but the difference was we're in a city of 2 million people, and there's a lot of other kids on the playground to play with. And yeah, I mean, that's not the only situation in Ukraine. Like one time we were out with Svetlana, David's best friend's mother, and we're in a playground. It was one playground across from ours. It was her playground. And David was riding his little Power Wheels four-wheeler. And this woman asked me, it's like, hey, could I pay you for my child to ride the four-wheeler? Well, this four-wheeler had a radio control. I handed her the remote, and I was like, no. I was like, just take it. I was like, it's got a full battery, And she takes her kid for a ride. No big deal. A smaller child wanted a ride, and I asked David to get back on and put the kid in front of him and, basically hold on. David did. David loves other children. And then there's one other woman that asked if her kid could have a ride. She shoved the kid on the four-wheeler and scared the kid. Her fault. Too aggressive with her child on it. He started crying and screaming. And I went over and I was being nice. I was like, hey, maybe some other time. I was like, he's scared. And I looked at the little guy and I explained to him in Russian. And I was like, hey, it's like, you don't have to be afraid of this. I was like, just next time you can ride it, okay? And I'm just trying to settle him down. Well, David gets back on and, turns on his radio. And he just wants to listen to music. He's not even riding. This woman starts screaming at us in Russian, you need to take your four-wheeler and go back to your country. And the other two mummies that their kids had just taken rides on the four-wheeler joined in. Stupid is as stupid does, sir. No, I've never been in the military. I love that quote because it's true. Svetlana stepped in and was like, "What is wrong with you guys?" She was like, "You two your kids were just on this four-wheeler with them. They're foreigners. They shouldn't be here." The person instigating this started. And Svetlana's like, "David was born here." They're like, "It doesn't matter. He speaks English. He needs to go back." Okay, he had said a few words to me in English the whole time we were there, speaking to everyone else in Russian. And at that point in time, David's English was not that good. He could understand me, but 95% of what he said to Daddy was in Russian. Like, it'd be comical. I'd be speaking to him in English, and he'd be answering me in Russian. Now we're in the U.S., and I try to say something to the kid in Russian. Most of the time, he will answer me in English unless I bribe him with some chocolate. And it's just I'm trying to keep his Russian up to the level it was. So the thing is, America's so racist and no, the whole world is. Go to Japan. They have a thing called kata gaijin. Ways and practices of dealing with outsiders. They like being known as great hosts. They do. But you start acting a little too Japanese, you'll get shunned. They'll push you away. If you're there as a guest, hey, you're going to have a great time. They're going to take very good care of you. And that's true for any country. It really is. But it's weird. I mean, I had an African woman. When I say African, she lives in an African country, and I cannot remember which country off the top of my head. Okay. To the Americans out there that don't understand this, Africa is a continent like North America, which has Canada and the United States, and South America that has many South American countries. To the foreigners out there, yes, most Americans do understand this about Africa. But despite what they think, and she's like, make this go viral. And I didn't even watch the whole thing, honestly, because I was just waking up and I'm checking my messages in case, there was an emergency or something. Force of habit. And I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, you were just complaining about your country, like letting people die with this virus. Then you're slamming on the United States. And I know most of those African countries, the situation with the police is far more dire than our own. The only difference is optics, because it's one skin killer doing it to the same skin killer. And do we need to address this? Yeah, we do. But it's just kind of strange how people from other foreign countries jump on certain things about the United States, like Australians. You guys are racist. You had slaves. Blah 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 blah. You're indigenous people. You had listed as flora and didn't recognize them as human beings until when? Way after we got rid of slavery. And you still had your indigenous people in chains too in certain situations. And the fact that we have slavery going in Libya and Saudi Arabia and many other countries. But we mention this to someone that's talking about how racist America is, and the conversation ends and they go away. They'll call you conservatives or racist or something else. Okay, so one fact does not make another fact not true. Do we need to deal with racist things in the United States? Yes. Okay, so why can't we agree on that and agree that there's slave trade in other countries that the U.S. should be using its political power to stop? Why? But it's funny because someone's like a far leftist will just shut it down. They don't want to talk about it. They don't exist. We don't want to talk about it. It's weird for me. It's really strange for me. You know. So, I want to leave this on a lighter note, but we don't want a revolution. It's gonna hurt our already. Revolutions will always hurt the lowest financial class the worst, and the middle class. Worst case scenario, the middle class will get destroyed, which a lot of these Antifa want. I know you guys do not understand the terms that they were using, but it's from the Red Revolution of the Soviet Union. They want to destroy the middle class. They're not even looking at billionaires and trillionaires. Let's be honest, none of us really know who the trillionaires are. These are old money that they don't want people to know. Can't blame them. But so you crush the middle class. So they become the poor. And what people don't realize is like they'll throw a few crumbs at the poor, making sure they get something, and make them think that, oh, everything is great. But the real thing is the poor get struck down even farther. And the elites up here, they've just gained more wealth. They stole a big chunk from the middle class, put it into their wealth, and gave a few of the crumbs to the very poor. A few, not very much. We have the largest middle class in the world, and it's shrinking. By the way, if you're wondering, that's not my drum set, that's David's. He can actually keep time with me when I'm playing Alice in Chains and stuff. It's a little bit smaller than a normal drum set. It's called a Junior, but my friend, who is one of the best drummers I've ever known, it's sad he's never made professional, because I've played on very large stages with some bands, some cover bands, mainly. I mean, I've had a pleasure of playing with a couple professionals, not on stage, but, met them at Guitar Center, got invited to their studio and just kind of jam. But this guy's the best drummer I've ever known for two very important reasons. Number one, his timing is never off. He's like a human metronome. Number two, you can use a 15-watt practice amp beside this guy. And for musicians that don't understand about this, most drummers, you need a 50 or 100-watt amplifier just to hear yourself. He can control his dynamics that well. The guy's awesome. He's one of those guys. He plays Megadeth, Metallica, and Dave Matthews. I mean, like, it's that far. And he's the reason, like, I'm a prog rock guy, and he kind of introduced me to Dave Matthews, which changed my playing a lot. I didn't learn the Dave Matthews songs, but I listened to them, and they give me ideas. But he said that sounded, and the company's SPL. So if you're looking for a drum set for your kid, if my boy down in Pittsburgh says it sounds like a professional kit, I believe him. And we used a company called Reverb. Hey, Dave. And that's where we got David's cymbals. Go rinse your hands off now. He's got soap on his hands. He's trying to show you guys. But yeah. Now, David was in a hospital in Ukraine for pneumonia, and his treatment was absolutely a horrid. We're talking like nurses screamed at him when he was 2+ because he wouldn't. He was crying because they want to put an IV in his arm. And the one nurse was, saying, "Oh, it's because he's a foreigner. He was born in Ukraine." And until I kind of lied and said I had a friend in the World Health Organization. They gave him very bad. I went in and I told him, like, listen, my friend once is a doctor and he wants a workup of what's going on with David. And I hate lying, but I had to do something to get my son better health care, or better treatment, I should say. The doctor was all snotty and she was like, we can't do it in English. We'll only do it in Russian. I was like, that's fine. I was like, my friend is Jewish and he speaks Russian fluently. He also donates some time for World Health Organization. And I hate telling lies to people, but your kid's in trouble. His mother asked me, "It's like, what did you do?" Because 2 nurses came running in and asked me, like, is David feeling okay? Does he need any help? Why? Because they were worried about what could come later for mistreating a patient. So they know themselves are not treating their patients correctly, So, anyways, any parent out there, I'm going to explain to you what's going on. He just took his soapy hands and rubbed it on the windows. I still got the winter plastic up because I'm trying to keep the heat out of the room on that window, so I'm okay. But anyways, you guys have a great day, and just think about it, like the real cost of a revolution for the poor people. So anytime anyone says that, please use this as an example. Use Ukraine as an example. Their currency went from 8 per dollar to 26 per dollar. 3,000 hryvnias was the average factory employee, and so that was $375, and it got dropped down to 115. And then they tried to do a switch by saying, "Hey, we'll give you 1,000 extra hryvnias a month," which makes it 150, which is $225 less. And like I said, that's the average. I mean, yeah, good boy. So I got to go, but my ex-girlfriend's before David's mother, he said if you made 7,000 hryvnias, you were made in Ukraine. Like, that was beautiful. But the honest truth is most people made between 2,000 and 3,000 hryvnias. So anyways, you guys have a great day, and I'm going to go play with my kid. Talk to you later. Say bye, Dave.